The INFJ's least strong cognitive function is extroverted sensing, which can lead to some serious difficulties. My inferior function as an INFJ, one of the 16 Myers-Briggs personality types, is extroverted sensing. I've heard it described in a number of ways, but the one that makes the most sense to me is that it's how I currently connect with the physical environment around me. I feel the need to clarify that last statement because, when I am caught up in my own headspace, which happens frequently, when I'm not thinking about the future, I'm also thinking back on the past. I find it difficult to stay in the present moment. One's inferior function has a lot to teach us, especially how it affects someone who is under a lot of stress. During these times, I succumb to extroverted sensing, usually by fidgeting, binge-watching television, purchasing expensive clothing and related items, and, most importantly, indulging in my favorite foods. Additionally, when life gets hectic, my regular job schedule changes, or I start traveling, I find comfort in all of these things. However, when I'm not under a lot of stress and just going about my everyday business, my extroverted sensing provides totally distinct sets of challenges. Although everyone can anticipate experiencing its effects differently, INFJs and INTJs also share this lower cognitive function. Here are some ways that being an INFJ impacts my daily life. Do you have similar experiences? What effect extroverted sensing has on my life? 1. I'm not good at decorating apartments. Weak extroverted sensing has a significant impact on me in that I frequently just pay attention to and remember my immediate physical environment. So long as the furniture I usually sit in is in the same general place, my roommate could move most of the furniture around and I wouldn't notice for a time, if ever. I recently inquired about the whereabouts of a specific antique item only to learn that I had been passing it every day for almost a year. My flat would probably just have 2 or 3 meaningful pieces on its otherwise empty walls if I didn't share it with an ISFP. If I had the money, I would purchase more original works of art than I have wall space for since I love beauty and art as much as everyone else, but I don't have a good eye for interior design. My favorite painting, Obsession, by Texan artist Dawn Winter, who also happens to be an INFJ, is on the wall opposite the television. I am aware that my living room has pictures, plants, and other decorations on every wall. However, if someone asked me to describe any of it in detail, all I could confidently say is that it is there. I am aware of this because I strive to appreciate it every day. The rest of it is just a fog in my mind. I have great situational memory, but my spatial memory is seriously poor. 2. I have the worst sense of direction. Unless I mostly consistently take the same route, I will always rely on GPS. It genuinely astounds me how effortlessly people, including kids, can navigate between and in big cities. After nearly 2 years of the same drive, I once missed my exit while returning from work. I was perplexed as to how that could have occurred and resolved to pay special attention the next day. What's this? Once more, I was late. It wasn't until the 3rd day that I understood why I'd missed it. The exit prior to mine was shut and barred. I was so accustomed to reacting to that initial exit's visual indication that even a little alteration in how it looked managed to confuse me. Before I was old enough to drive, I was always the passenger, lost in thought, daydreaming, and making plans. Since then, I've discovered that the majority of people spend at least some of their early years monitoring traffic patterns and driving behaviors. Maybe I wouldn't have the disadvantage I do today if I had spent more time studying how driving worked and less time in my brain. Or perhaps it wouldn't have mattered. I'll never be aware. 3. What's right in front of me is nowhere to be found. Sometimes the visual information in front of me might be so overwhelming that even when I'm staring directly at something, I might not notice it. At the grocery store, this is the most visible. I will look everywhere on the shelves from where I know a specific item should be and yet not find it. The easiest thing to do would be to flag down a worker, but I'd almost prefer simply stand there until it was time to close. Instead, I usually just leave and come back. That usually works. 4. When I don't need to think about anything, maintaining eye contact is simple. I appreciate eye contact because I never want the person I'm talking to feel like I'm not paying full attention to them. However, when either my introverted thinking or introverted intuition functions want to take over, this gets challenging. Typically, only during lengthy, philosophical conversations does this occur. My preferred variety. In talks, lectures, I find that when I'm listening to a presentation, I learn more when I'm just listening. Instead of focusing on the speaker, I can concentrate on my notebook and fully absorb each word while also reflecting on and expanding the speaker's views. My attention is diverted when I stare directly at the speaker because I have to distinguish the spoken words from what I am seeing. I can still think, but not quite as deeply as when the visual information is completely blocked off. 5. It's hard to get my attention. Getting my attention might be challenging, if not downright impossible, when my mind is on something or I'm fully committed to a job. An outsider could conclude that my inability to multitask and my tendency to solely focus on one subject at a time are the problems. Actually, this is not the case. If someone calls my name repeatedly and I don't hear them, it's not because I'm paying close attention to one task. Instead, I'm probably doing that task while mentally considering its results, considering a fallback plan, and perhaps even considering lunch or a new personal project I've been considering. The point is that when I'm mentally multitasking, I'm least likely to notice external cues. That's a lot. Although I am aware that this personal failing is a result of poor external sensing, I do not view this as a justification. While losing myself in my thoughts is enjoyable for me, improving the lives of others is considerably more significant in my line of work. I make it a point to stay as present and attentive as I can, and to apologize and make up for it when I fall short. Making someone feel unheard or unnoticed is not something I want to be responsible for. After being familiar with the notion of cognitive functions, my knowledge of the MBTI personality type substantially increased. It made a lot of sense to me to think about personality in terms of 4 functions, stacked from strongest to weakest. Even though discovering my top functions is immensely fulfilling, learning about how my least preferred function affects my life has been helpful in my quest to understand myself better. I urge my fellow INFJs and INTJs to examine how their subpar extroverted sensing manifests itself in their day-to-day lives. Some of you might be able to connect to my experience, while others might have completely different ones. Please share your opinions in the section below.